Who would you consider as the most badass person in history? Maybe not the most, but definitely an honorable mention, Stanislav, the man who saved the world from an all-out nuclear war in 1983.
Canadian Rambo aka Leo Major. Dude liberated an entire town in the Netherlands by himself while injured in WW2.
IDK if it's true but a story about a kid getting his limb bitten off by a shark, the uncle was with him, the uncle dragged the shark out of the water and retrieved said limb from shark, believe the kid made a full recovery.
Mad Jack Churchill, no relation. On D-Day, he stormed the beach armed with a broadsword and a longbow. He has the only confirmed kill with a longbow in World War II. At one point he was captured, escaped, and later found playing his bagpipes. Dude was a beep legend.
That teenage girl that was the sole survivor of a plane crash and made her way through the Amazon. She's definitely up there.
Definitely Major Hugh Thompson. I'm sure there are people who have done similarly brave things, but not that I know about. In 1968, Thompson managed to stop the My Lai massacre almost single-handedly. He arrived after many civilians had already been killed, and couldn't understand how they had died. After realizing his fellow American soldiers were firing on unarmed civilians, he landed his helicopter between the Vietnamese and the soldiers. He then told the troops that if they continued to do what they were doing, he and his crew would open fire on them. After getting back to base, he filed a complaint about what he had witnessed. His complaint was covered up, and he was shunned as a traitor. It wasn't until 1998 that the army acknowledged he did the right thing. It's common to be brave in war when you know that you'll be lauded as a hero. It's another thing entirely to do it knowing you'll be seen as a traitor. He turned against his troops and country to protect innocent lives, despite what it would cost him, and I think that's about as brave as you can get.
The woman who killed the hitman her husband hired to kill her.
Battle of Stamford Bridge, the lone Norse axeman single-handedly held up the entire English army.
Desmond Doss. An army medic in World War II who was constantly belittled and abused by his battalion and superiors for refusing to use a weapon as it went against his beliefs. Then, when he landed in Okinawa and more than half of his battalion were shredded by Japanese machine gun fire, Desmond Doss crawled through the dirt over the course of several days to as many of his injured allies as he could and dragged them all the way back to the 40-foot cliff they had scaled up from, then lowered them to safety. Some of these injured men were lying 15 feet from the enemy machine gun itself, and all the while Doss wore his medic helmet, which stood out like a giant bullseye on a battlefield where the Japanese soldiers were ordered to kill doctors first to crush morale. In the end he had saved the lives of 75 men, and survived with an arm fracture from a sniper round and several pieces of shrapnel embedded in his body from when he tried to kick a grenade away from him and his men. He is the only soldier without a gun to be awarded the Medal of Honor. Edit, the first conscientious objector to be awarded the Medal of Honor. There have been others since.
Maria Oktyabrskaya. Her husband was killed in World War II, so she sold all her possessions, bought a T-34 tank, and went into the army. Edit. Technically she sold her possessions, donated the tank and then asked to drive it and was allowed.
Witold Pilecki volunteered to Auschwitz death camp and escaped it to report what was happening there to Eliza Poland. No one gave a beep at that time.
Leo Major, or the American who shot down a Japanese Zero with his pistol while parachuting.
Nancy, so skilled as she was nicknamed the White Mouse by the Gestapo due to her elusiveness in avoiding capture. Highly talented in espionage, she worked as a spy for the French resistance and the Special Operations Executive to take down the Nazis. One of the more highly decorated women from WW2, yet not well known.
Robert Smalls. He escaped slavery, stole a Confederate boat, sailed away to freedom, and later served in Congress.
Simo Hawa. The White Death. 500 kills in World War II. Got half his face blown off by an explosive bullet and tried to get back into the war.
Christopher Lee. Not the most badass person that ever lived, but definitely one of them. Dude fought Nazis and was knighted, also was in a metal band and has been in lots of movies.
Harriet Tubman. She was barely 5 feet tall, experienced spells because of a traumatic brain injury, repeatedly snuck into the South of free slaves, was a spy and led an armed assault during the Civil War.
Galvarino. He was a fierce Mapuche warrior that had both of his hands chopped off as punishment when captured by the Spanish during the Arauco War. Rather than slaughter Galvarino, The Spanish sent him back to the Mapuche to send a message, but instead of causing the Mapuche to surrender, it had the opposite effect. Galvarino decided to have 2 knives lashed to the stumps where his hands used to be. He learned to fight without hands while using the knives as weapons. Less than a month later, Galvarino fought with the Mapuche against the Spanish again. Around 3,000 Mapuche warriors engaged 1,500 of the Spanish on November 30, 1557. At the Battle of Malarapué, although they didn't win, Galvarino killed several of the Spanish before the army of 3,000 were all killed.
The Russian night they flew in slow, outdated planes, without parachutes, and dropped bombs by sight alone. At night.
Tank Man of Tiananmen Square.
Helge Meyer, also known as God's Rambo. A Danish special forces officer who bought a 1972 Camaro and turned it into an up-armored beast so he could deliver humanitarian aid in war-torn Yugoslavia during the civil war and ethnic cleansing.
Look up Johnny Kim. Still a young man, relatively, Navy SEAL, medical doctor and a NASA astronaut.
Peter Fruken. He was a Danish explorer, journalist, author and anthropologist. He is widely known for his exploration of the Arctic Circle and discovery of vast areas of Greenland. He was an indigenous rights activist, having married an Inuit woman. He escaped a death warrant issued by the Third Reich for punching Nazis. Received an Academy Award for the Best Motion Picture in 1933. Won the $64,000 question as a contestant on the game show. He wrestled a polar bear and won. And as if this all wasn't enough, he escaped a near-death encounter in a blizzard by fashioning a spade out of his own frozen feces.
Sir William the Marshal, 1 RST Earl of Pembroke. The baddest man alive at a time where only hard men lived long enough to see their hair turn grey. Widely considered the greatest knight to ever walk the face the earth. Defeated over 500 knights in tourney combat. Is the man the code of chivalry is based on. Defeated the greatest knight in France, handily, in a one-on-one duel at the Battle of Lincoln in 1217, in his beep 70s. Effectively ruled England off and on through his regencies for decades. Signatory of the Magna Carta. He gets my vote.
Audie Murphy was pretty damned badass.
Mary Vincent. She was attacked with an axe in an attempted murder, losing both hands and then dumped off a cliff. She survived and walked almost 3 miles to go find help. All when she was 15. She's in an episode of I Survived, and her story is unbelievable. She is such a BAMF.
Florida man. The legend grows every day.
Teddy Roosevelt. Led a scientific expedition into the wilds of the Amazon in 1913. First president to invite a prominent black man to the White House. Booker T. Washington. Resigned cushy-assed sec of the Navy position to start his own regiment and fight on the ground in the Spanish-American War. Was hit in the chest with a bullet in an attempted assassination. After a bit of mayhem securing the shooter, Roosevelt carried on with his speech. Started the national park system, preserving our country's most amazing natural wonders.
Leonardo da Vinci. He was so incredibly far ahead of his time.
Rasputin was a scary sob, and reportedly a hell of a hard guy to kill. May not deserve the top spot, but he's up there on the list, assuming badass isn't restricted to good people.
The actual, factual Captain Morgan.
Daniel Inouye, senator from Hawaii, World War II vet, Japanese-American who had to prove himself every step of the way through the European theater of operations. And to me an honest-to-goodness hero. In 1943, when the U.S. Army dropped its enlistment ban on Japanese Americans, Inouye curtailed his pre-medical studies at the University of Hawaii and enlisted in the Army. 6. He volunteered to be part of the segregated All-Nisei 442nd Regimental Combat Team. This Army formation was mostly made up of second-generation Japanese Americans from Hawaii and the mainland. Inouye was promoted to sergeant within his first year, and he was assigned as a platoon sergeant. He served in Italy in 1944 during the Rome-Arno campaign before his regiment was transferred to the Vosges Mountains region of France, where he spent 2 weeks in the battle to relieve the Lost Battalion, a battalion of the 141st Infantry Regiment that was surrounded by German forces. He received a battlefield commission to second lieutenant for his actions there, becoming the youngest officer in his regiment. At one point while he was leading an attack, a shot struck him in the chest directly above his heart, but the bullet was stopped by the $2 silver he happened to have stacked in his shirt pocket. He continued to carry the coins throughout the war in his shirt pocket as good luck charms, until he lost them shortly before the battle in which he lost his arm. On April 21, 1945, Lieutenant Inouye was grievously wounded while leading an assault on a heavily defended ridge near Santorenzo in Liguria, Italy, called the Col Musatello. The ridge served as a strongpoint of the German fortifications known as the Gothic Line, the last and most unyielding line of German defensive works in Italy. As he led his platoon in a flanking maneuver, 3 German machine guns opened fire from covered positions 40 yards away, pinning his men to the ground. Inouye stood up to attack and was shot in the stomach. Ignoring his wound, he proceeded to attack and destroy the first machine gun nest with hand grenades and his Thompson submachine gun. When informed of the severity of his wound, he refused treatment and rallied his men for an attack on the second machine gun position, which he successfully destroyed before collapsing from blood loss. As his squad distracted the third machine gunner, Inouye crawled toward the final bunker, coming within 10 yards. As he raised himself on his left elbow and cocked his right arm to throw his last hand grenade, a German soldier saw Inouye and fired a 30mm Schiessbecher anti-personnel rifle grenade from inside the bunker, which struck Inouye directly on his right elbow. The high-explosive grenade failed to detonate, saving Inouye from instant death but amputating most of his right arm at the elbow, except for a few tendons and a flap of skin, via blunt force trauma. Despite this gruesome injury, Inouye was again saved from likely death due to the blunt, low-velocity grenade tearing the nerves in his arm unevenly and incompletely, which involuntarily squeezed the grenade tightly via a reflex arc instead of going limp and dropping it at Inouye's feet. However, this still left him crippled, in terrible pain, under fire with minimal cover and staring at a live grenade, clenched in a fist that suddenly didn't belong to me anymore. Inouye's horrified soldiers moved to his aid, but he shouted for them to keep back out of fear his severed fist would involuntarily relax and drop the grenade. As the German inside the bunker began hastily reloading his rifle with regular full metal jacket ammunition, replacing the wood-tipped rounds used to propel rifle grenades, Inouye quickly pried the live hand grenade from his useless right hand and transferred it to his left. The German soldier had just finished reloading and was aiming his rifle to finish him off when Inouye threw his grenade through the narrow firing slit, killing the German. Stumbling to his feet with the remnants of his right arm hanging grotesquely at his side and his Thompson in his offhand, braced against his hip, Inouye continued forward, killing at least one more German before suffering his 5th and final wound of the day, in his left leg, which finally halted his one-man assault for good and sent him tumbling unconscious to the bottom of the ridge. He awoke to see the worried men of his platoon hovering over him. His only comment before being carried away was to gruffly order them back to their positions, saying, "Nobody called off the war." TLDR. Blew up several German machine gun bunkers with mad grenades as he got shot in the stomach, lost an arm. And had to throw left-handed. Then told the rest of the platoon to keep going because beep wasn't done with. Blocked a bullet with silver dollars. Went home to Hawaii, became a senator. And if he'd run for president I'd have voted for him. Absolute badass.
Olga of Kiev slaughtered all the rulers from the nation that killed her husband and literally burned down an entire village just because she felt like it.
John Paul Jones, father of the American Navy.
Beep it. Everyone's mentioning historical figures and people who made the news, but I want to nominate my dad's cat who took buckshot to the chest, shattering his leg and leaving gaping wounds in his chest cavity, who then played on literal survival mode for a fortnight before making it home, with an infected, gangrenous almost, hole in his chest. The buckshot just barely missed his heart from the vet's inspection. He got anesthetic whilst they cleaned up the infection and closed up the entry and exit wounds. He lived a relatively long and very happy life afterwards with his peg leg and passed on from old age. R.I.P. Puts.
The person who rickrolled Rick Astley.
Lyudmila Pavlichenko, or Lady Death, the Soviet WW2 sniper with 309 confirmed kills, has to be up there.
My uncle who beat alcohol addiction and saved his family.
Medicine Crow. Absolute unit.
Duncan Hamilton. The man who won the 24 hours of Le Mans while drunk.
Napoleon. Beep got half of Europe declare war on him. Not France, him himself.
The most badass people names are probably forgotten already, considering they used to hunt mammoths and saber-toothed tigers with spears. Anything after that was thanks to those people.
Alan Turing single-handedly saved millions and had to live a miserable life after edit. I've been informed that the saving millions part was a team effort.
Chernobyl's suicide squad stopped Chernobyl from exploding a few years after the initial incident, saving millions of lives and possibly all of Europe.
Colonel Cotton Hill.
Marie Curie. First woman to win a Nobel Prize and first person to win 2 Nobel Prizes, chemistry and physics, coined the term radioactivity, discovered 2 elements, radium and polonium, and ended up dying for her work, from radiation poisoning. Her belongings will still be radioactive for another 1,500 years. Dead set legend.
Ernest Hemingway. The only thing that could kill him was himself.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.